My name is Marie, and this is Likened Unto Me, my personal scripture journey. I'm going to talk today about Captain Moroni. He is my all-time favorite hero in the Book of Mormon, and I love this story about him. So this story starts with a guy named Amalickiah, who is a Nephite, but he doesn't like how the government is set up. He doesn't like the whole judges system. He wants to be king, and he does everything he can to become king of the Nephites. He tries to get followers, and he gets a vote to be put up among the people to have them vote whether they would rather stick with judges or go to kings, which he loses, and the Nephites choose to keep the judges. So after Amalickiah loses that, then he goes to the Lamanites, and he becomes king of the Lamanites through killing a bunch of people. And then he uses the Lamanite armies to then come and attack the Nephite armies. So Captain Moroni sees all of this stuff that Amalickiah is doing, and he is not having it. He's not going to let that happen to his people. So when Amalickiah first comes on the scene, Moroni makes the title of liberty. And he sets up and takes a stand. He says, in memory of our God, our religion and freedom, and our peace, our wives and our children. He decides exactly what he stands for. And then when Amalickiah leaves and he knows that Amalickiah has taken over the Lamanite armies, he starts preparing his people. And the first thing he does is he prepares his people to be faithful to God. That's the very first thing he does. And then he starts with all of the temporal preparation. So he strengthens his armies. He adds men. He adds weapons. He improves armor. He teaches his men skills. Then he starts building forts and places of resort for if the people have to stand and fight or if they have to run. He throws up banks of earth all around his armies where they all are. He builds walls of stone around the cities and around the land that they use. In the weakest parts of the land, he sends the strongest part of his army and the most number of men. And in verse 10 of chapter 48 in Alma, it says that he prepared the people to live unto the Lord their God. And I love that idea of living unto the Lord our God. So after Amalickiah becomes king of the Lamanites, he sends the Lamanite army to go and defeat the Nephites so that he can rule them too. And the Lamanites lose soundly. Like, they're smashed. They are not prepared at all to face the Nephites and all of this preparation that Moroni's been doing. So they retreat with their tail between their legs back to their lands, back to Amalickiah, and they tell him what happened. And Amalickiah, of course, gets real upset that his plans didn't go how he wanted them to go. Now, Moroni, he knows that even though they've beat the Lamanites, Amalickiah is not going to give up. He's done everything he can to try to take over the Nephites, and Moroni knows that he's coming back. So Moroni keeps preparing the people. He digs more ditches. He adds timbers. He builds towers. He just keeps on preparing the people for when he knows that the Lamanites are going to come back. But Moroni doesn't make the people live in fear either. He doesn't have them all hole up in their cities and never leave. They actually send people out to build new cities. There's 2 cities mentioned by name, the city of Moroni and the city of Nephihah, that the Nephites start building. And then it talks about a bunch of other cities up in the north that they start building. They're still living their life. They're still doing what they should. And in Alma 50, verse 23, it says that there was never a happier time since the time of Nephi than during the time of Captain Moroni. Even with all of this potential war hanging over their head and this wicked guy who lives in another land that's threatening them, based on the things that they're doing, they're happy. They're living unto the Lord their God. And this story has so much that can be likened to my life. So in the story, there's Amalickiah. In my story, there's Satan. And Satan is doing everything he can to try to take over me and my people, which in this case is my family. He will stop at nothing to try to take us down. So, like Captain Moroni, I need to be preparing myself and preparing my family and protecting us from these attacks that we know are going to be coming from Satan. So, the first thing that we need to do is like Captain Moroni. We need to take a stand. I need to decide what I believe in, what I stand for. And then I need to start preparing my family. And the things that Moroni does, like building the walls and the places of resort and strengthening his armies, that I liken to my home. What is my home like? Is my home a place of safety? Is it a place where my family can escape the bad things in the world? How are the relationships in my home? Am I doing my best to make it a nice place where the spirit can be, where we can escape all of these attacks from Satan? Am I preparing my family to live unto the Lord? Are we living our lives trying to fulfill the mission that the Lord has sent us here to do? Or are we just kind of holed up not doing anything at all? Another question I like to ask myself is, how hard am I actually working to protect from Satan? Is it a conscious thought in my brain, or is it just something that kind of passes every now and then? Because the way Captain Moroni acts, he acts like this is life and death. And for them, the Nephites, it was. And for me, it is. It's spiritual life and spiritual death. So how much of a conscious effort am I making towards preparing my family? So in the story, Amalickiah, he attacks the Nephites and then he retreats and kind of gives them a few years where he doesn't really come after them. And I think Satan does the same thing sometimes. He comes after us, and especially when we stand up to him and we defeat him, he might retreat for a little bit and go away and make us think that everything's nice, everything's good. But he always comes back, just like Amalickiah did. Satan always comes back. So like Captain Moroni, we can't let our guard down. We have to keep preparing. And I'm sure that as Captain Moroni kept preparing his people, they already have walls of stone built. They already have some ditches. He digs more ditches. He builds walls of timber. Then he adds towers. He just keeps going and keeps going. And his people probably think that he's crazy with all of the protection that he's building. But I bet that his people were really grateful when the Lamanite army did come back, that they had all of that extra protection ready for when they had to fight the Lamanites again. I also love in Captain Moroni's example that he didn't just have the people hide away from the Lamanites. They went out, they spread out, they kept living life. They built new cities. They went out into the world. They were still spreading good through the Nephites. They were preparing even more of their people to be ready for Satan to come back. They weren't just hiding away. They were out and they were doing things. So for me, this is living unto the Lord. They kept life going. They kept spreading. I should keep my life going. I don't need to hide. I know Satan's going to attack and I can keep myself prepared for that, but there's no reason to hide. That doesn't do anybody any good. All that does is let Satan take over all of the other parts. And eventually he will get me because there will be nothing good left around me. So like Captain Moroni, I need to step up, decide what I believe in, prepare to protect myself and my family, and then live unto the Lord my God. Thanks for listening. Any quotes or scriptures or stories that I used are cited in the description. This is likened unto me, my personal scripture journey.